Alright, so I finished up most of my filing here, and I went really smooth at the end to kind of try to smooth them down a little bit. But I got the profile that I'm looking for. The butt end on this is still a bit too big, but that's going to be kind of the same thing. You just want to kind of come back and round these corners off, you know, and kind of come in and reduce the size of it a little bit if that's what you want. For this one, I'm just going to go ahead and round the back and then move into the rest of the shaping. But you're going to do the same thing down here. You're going to come in with that file and you're going to round off anything that the coping saw left behind. You want to stay pretty level so you don't go around the back on this thing, because that back needs to stay pretty flat. So get this nice and done. Flip it around. Do the same thing. And switch over to the flat side to round off your transition between the curve and the back. And that's basically done with the file. Now we're going to come back with a scraper and show you how to finish this up. Now, I want to try to get this so that way it's pretty easy to see here. But I put a burr on the scraper, and I'm just going to start kind of coming up and removing my fine scratches on here. That went pretty quick, actually. And now the fine scratches that were on there, and I've got a couple little humps I'll have to, actually, those don't look too bad. See how it's nice? Actually, yeah, there's a little ridge running down there that I can correct here, but it's got a nice shine to it in comparison to the rest of the piece. It's because it's basically sanded down to about 400 at this point right off the scraper. And there's a video on how to do the scrapers just before this one. So now I got my other side. It's all gunked up from the file. I'm going to come across again, do the same thing. Even that out. I'm going to carry a little over to the top just because I got some file marks on there. And that's working out pretty well. Getting nice and shiny, getting all those marks out of there. And you just want to continue going around the bridge. The same thing over here, just watch where you're scraping against the grain. You're going to want to come down with the scraper here. I'll show you that. If you come up, the grain's coming here, so if you come up against it, you're going to pull grain, and it's just not going to look right. So, and it's going to rip things out, so you want to come against it this way. Or, sorry, with it this way. Get the majority of your gunk out. Same thing with this one, get the majority of it off. And then what I would do next is I'm going to come back with just some fine paper, probably 150 grit, right around there, and I'm going to round all these edges so they're not nearly as big. You know, and again, on a normal bridge, I'd come across and I'd reduce the amount on the back of here a little bit. You know, maybe bring it up about halfway so it's a little bit closer and the bridge doesn't have as much mass. But I'm going to come through and just round this off real nice, and we will see what that looks like here in just a second. Alright, so I did a little bit of rounding here with the file, and the way that you do this is just clamp your piece down. Try to keep the clamp kind of out of your work way. Clamp it down, come along with the file, round the flats with the flat. Switch over the curves for the curves. And I like to bevel these front edges a little bit on the wings. You kind of get those beveled down really nice. It's going to dress them up pretty well. And do the same thing on the other side. Get your curve. And then get the straight side. And then the bevel. Yeah, that's a little uneven. Let's even that out. You can see the bevel on there. You know, the bridge is pretty close to done. Last thing you want to do is get some 220. Get some 220 and just work all over the bridge like this. Again, this is the quick version. So get yourself sanded up, round all your corners. Don't round anything on the bottom. You want that to be nice and straight because that's going to land on the guitar just like that. You don't want to have anything beveled under. It's going to reduce your grip of your glue and everything like that. So what I would do at this point next is I would go ahead and get a taper reamer. This is a 3-degree reamer. Matches the bridge pins. And I just kind of come in like this and widen my holes a little bit. I don't really like to do too much when it's off the guitar, just because it's a little easier to control it when it's on the guitar. I'll also too come through with a countersink bit. Come through with a countersink and go ahead and widen these holes out a little bit so that way there's a spot for the head of the pin to land. And I'll normally just do this by hand because it actually takes longer to set this up in the drill press than it does just to sit in here and just do it by hand. So get all these holes, get them countersunk in there for the heads, and then I'll come back and run the reamer through all of them. You know, most of the way, not all the way. I just like to do it most of the way in case I have a loose pin that I got to deal with. It's easier to deal with when you're routing a fresh hole because it'll go right in and you can stop when the pin's going to fit well. Whereas if you already have it reamed out way too wide for the pin, you know, you're just kind of in trouble. So I get these through, I even them out, and you kind of want to go back through and look at them as you're doing it to make sure that not any one of them is really any deeper than the other one. You want to keep it looking nice. Then you got your piece here, and I'll come through with a little 220 and just to knock down any gunk that's in there. You know, just kind of roll them out like that. Go all the way through them, and then kind of come back this way and finish the sanding. And this still has some scratches on it, so I'd have to go through with the 220 for a while, get those scratches out, come back with like a 320 or a 400, get the last little bit out, and then hit it with some steel wool. You could take this over to a buffing wheel if you've got it and use like a Tripoli compound and really get a good shine on it with that. You can also buff it with a carnauba wax and make that be the only finish that's on it. It'll look really good too. But that's the basic bridge. And again, your order of operation, at least for me, is I cut the hole first. And again, this one was cut a little wide, so that's why I'm using this one. I just don't want to ruin another piece that I can make into a regular bridge. Cut your slot, cut for the hole, make sure your saddle fits, make sure everything is good there. Line up your hole cutter jig, There's just a little template that you just drill out and measure really good, so you just have to lay it over and do it. Come back and cut out your profile. Get onto it with the rasp, refine it. You know, it takes a little while to carve stuff, so refine it, make sure you like it the way that it is. Rosewood carves like a dream. Really, really easy stuff. So if you don't like carving, this will actually carve pretty well. So get the shape you want, get it sanded really, really good. Either hit it with a carnauba wax buff or like a Tripoli buff, and you're really good from there. The last thing you'll do is on the surface of your guitar, you'll lay down a really, really big piece of sandpaper, kind of much bigger than this one. You'll get your bridge in place because of the dome on the top of the guitar, and you'll just kind of work it back and forth until you hollow a matching concavity in the bottom of here, which they're very slight, but they need it. That way when the bridge goes on the guitar, you can glue it down perfectly without changing the deflection or the doming on the top. But if you have any questions about bridge making, just shoot me an email. It's sixgunguitars@gmail.com, and I'll go ahead and do my best to answer them for you. Real quick last bit of follow-up on the bridge. I went ahead and I put a coat of Johnson's floor wax on here. It's just regular old Johnson's original paste wax. Stuff looks like that. Just a regular old wax finish. That's it. You can buff on a carnauba wax on these things, you can do a wax finish. But that's what it looks like with the wax on there. And all I did was I just took a little cloth, put a bunch of the wax on there, let it sit for a while, let it haze over, and then buffed it out. You can take this over to a wheel, just a regular old cotton wheel with nothing on it after you're done, and you can buff that out a little bit more. But I just kind of wanted to show you a final of what the bridge looks like, and that is the unfinished underneath and the finished on the top. You know, it's got a really nice kind of satin, you know, glow to it, and pretty good looking little bridge.